Blue, and in today's video I'll show you how to color and render skin. Skin is probably my favorite thing to color and render because it's so soft and malleable and there's not a lot of rules to it like there are for clothing or for hair. So I feel like there's a lot more freedom to kind of render your skin the way you want to. I don't know, there's just something about rendering hand skin and then making it look so like yum, you know? So first thing we'll do is the whys and then we'll get to the how-tos. Before we dive in, I'm excited to share that this video is sponsored by the good people over at Skillshare. Skillshare is an incredible online learning community where everyone can explore and enroll and even teach a wide range of classes, from photography and graphic design to music, cooking, business, marketing, lifestyle, and much, much more. There's something for everyone. One thing I've been wanting to improve is my ability to capture likeness of people in portraits. I love the people in my life, and the idea of creating drawings that capture precious moments is special to me. So the class I've been taking is Digital Painting in Photoshop, Create a Stylized Portrait by Melissa D. Nobriga. She covers interesting topics like value scaling, painting tips, and stylization techniques. Her explanations are easy to follow along, and I definitely recommend her classes. Another class I really love and highly recommend is Digital Painting Concept Landscapes by Jonas Dereo. It's so good with loads of easy to follow advice on drawing landscapes from thumbnailing to composition. There's so much good art advice on the platform. I highly recommend it if you're looking to get better at art. Skillshare offers learning paths as well, which is a collection of classes carefully selected to be taken step by step. Each class builds on what you've already learned, reinforcing the lessons. They cover various levels of experience, from beginners to advanced, including topics like design, productivity, creativity, freelancing, and so much more. So if you don't know where to start, Skillshare's learning paths are for you. So stop saying I want to and turn those I want to's into I made it happen. Whether you're pursuing hobbies or aiming to turn your skills into a career, start investing in yourself this year with Skillshare. Skillshare has thousands of classes covering virtually every skill imaginable. Skillshare is giving away 1 month free to the first 500 viewers to use my link in the description box. I highly recommend taking advantage of this opportunity if you're eager for easy and enjoyable learning. Big thank you to Skillshare again for their continued support. Now let's dive into the video. There are many different skin tones with varying colors and shading and blush types to use, but you can use the method that I'm going to show you for any type of skin color, including the unnatural ones. So most skin tones lean towards warmer colors on the color wheel, so from here till about here. The reason it leans towards the warmer tones is due to the blood being underneath the skin. So this means that skin tones and blushes will often have a warmer undertone. I add this and I call it blush. So when you add blush to the skin, it makes it more lifelike and adds more of that rosy tint to it. I pick the base color of the skin tone and then I shift the hue to a bit more of a red or pinker color. Even with the darker skin tones, all I do is shift the saturation to a bit more of a brighter red color. When I'm picking shading colors for the skin, I prefer shifting the colors down to purple and maroons. I use 2 different saturations and hues when picking the shading. So I'll have the base shading, which will probably be this purple or maroon, and then I'll shift the saturation down 1 to make it a bit darker. I'll use these 2 different colors in different sections of the skin. If you look nicely, you can see the 2 different shading colors I used in these 2 pictures. When light hits the skin, it catches the blood cells, making them appear redder. This is called subsurface scattering, and I add this when I color. So how I do this is I will add a bit more of a darker red, outlining the shading. This is kind of playing on the fact that there are red blood cells underneath the skin and the light is catching on it. The second type of shading I add is called a reflective light. Adding a reflective light to the skin can enhance its depth. I like using colors from the opposite side of the color wheel, such as blues and greens, to create striking contrast. So then we have highlights. Highlights should be in the same hue as the base color, but with a higher saturation. This makes the highlights stand out without looking unnatural. Now this is just how I do it, but if you'd actually like to get better at it on your own, I would suggest doing skin studies, so redrawing actual skin from references like photos or from screenshots. And also look into studying how other artists do it, so redrawing another artist's artwork and observing what they do. There's this really neat thing called the flesh cubes done by this artist, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen before in the past. They're great for finding skin tones and then finding shading and highlight colors that suit the skin tone. Though the thing with skin color is it is rarely ever the same color twice. The environment can drastically affect the skin tone and shading. For instance, a character in a forest might have greenish hues reflecting on their skin, while the one near the ocean might have a bit more bluish or warmer colors depending on where they sit. So just because you're using the flesh cube for examples doesn't mean that they will always stay the same hue. So just a tip I'd like to point out between coloring darker skin and lighter skin is that with lighter skin you focus more on the blush and the redness to create form, but I notice when I'm drawing darker skin I tend to focus more on the highlights to really show the shape of the face. So I will use like a lighter color to show where the rounding of the cheeks are or where the face basically bends. I think it's because this darker skin tends to catch more light than the lighter skin. Also, darker skinned people normally have lighter palms and lighter underneath their feet, so I just wanted to point that out. If you're going in and rendering a darker skinned hand, just keep that in mind. Highlights in the face can really define the facial features, so when I'm rendering a face, I tend to add the highlights to places to kind of show depth. So for example, I would add a highlight by the eyes or under the eyes to kind of show the eye bags. Or if I'm rendering a hand, I'll add highlight between the knuckles to show that like it has like a bit of an elevated surface. So that's just something I wanted to mention before I get into the examples. Now let's get into the fun part, the how-tos. I will do a step-by-step guide on a piece on how I'm rendering skin. So for this, I will be doing different skin tones for examples, but I won't be making extreme environment changes, so they'll mostly be based on like regular environmental skin tones. So first thing I do is I add the base color, which is the regular base tone. You can make use of our Lord and Savior, the flesh cubes, if you're unsure of which skin tone to pick, or you can just go off of the color wheel if you're confident enough that you're picking the right hues. So once I have the base color down, I will start adding the blush. So I add the blush to parts of the body where the skin is more thinner, such as under the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the ears, the lips, the elbows, basically any part of the body that ends in like a point. So shoulders, knees, ankles, you get my point. Then I also use blush to create depth. For example, if I'm drawing muscles, I will use the blush color to define the shape and depth of the muscle. Or if I'm drawing the back, I will use the blush to define where the back crease is. It's really good to add more depth into it. When I'm drawing hands, I use the blush to show where the knuckles are. I use it to create depth in the body parts. I also add blush to rounded pieces, so if I'm drawing like an arm, I will add like a thin blurred out line of blush next to the side to show that the arm is round. Next thing I do is I add shading based on the light source. I pick the shading colors, which is either going to be a maroon or a reddish color, and then I add it where the light will obviously fall. So then I have two different shading colors. I have a darker maroon and then a lighter maroon, and then I just kind of play with the two of them until they kind of work out. Sometimes I'll use a lasso tool and just airbrush in like the lighter color into the shading, but that's only when I'm feeling really fancy. Now do note that the shading colors can change depending on the environment. All of these colors can change depending on the environment, so just keep in mind where your character is. But if I'm just doing like a basic flat color, I normally just do with red or maroons. So for this piece, I didn't actually add reflective light. I'll go in and add that at the end because I actually forgot. So what I do instead is I add a lighter color to where some of the creases are, and I feel like that really defines where the crease is. So you can see by her back or the knees or his neck, I added like a lighter color to show that there's a crease. So that's kind of like a reflective light as well. Whoops, spoilers, but here is the finished piece, and here is where I would add the reflective light if I did go in and add it into these examples. I think it was because I was using a reference for all of these, so and my brain didn't think like, oh, I should be adding different colors into it. But yeah, so here's where I've added them. It's normally a light purple or a light green color that I add for the reflective light, because I think that just goes with the skin tones. But yeah, I'm so sorry about this. So after I've added everything to the drawing, what I like to do is go in with an overlay layer and the airbrush, and then I take a pinker, lighter color and I just splotch it over the face area. It kind of just brightens up the face and makes it more poppy against the rest of the colors. Yeah, so that's what I did there, and then I add the subsurface scattering, which I showed earlier, and normally I just do that with an overlay layer as well. And then I'm happy with like the base color, I will go in and paint it, which is what I'm doing here. If you are interested in knowing how I paint, I have a tutorial on like my painting process over there. So a lot of the first part of the video was kind of to show you the steps that I take, and this part of the video is how I put it into practice. So you can see I'm using the blush to kind of like shape out like the forms. So like there by her nose, I added like a red line to show that, hey, like there's like a shape that goes down. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, these were pretty fun to do. I really enjoy painting skin because I think it's really freeing and just lots of fun to do. You can obviously do this a lot neater than what I did, because when I put down the colors, I'm more concentrating on like getting the colors to look okay rather than making it look neat the first time. Also, if you can hear the birds in the background, I'm so sorry. It's really hot here and I don't want to close my windows, and they were just kind of like screaming, so yeah. So the big difference that I noticed, like I said at the start, for rendering darker skin and rendering lighter skin is for darker skin, concentrate on where the highlights hit the skin and rendering that into it. And for lighter skin, you don't really need to worry so much about the highlights since it is a higher value. But for darker skin, I think concentrating on where the light hits the skin will help you define the features a lot more. Since it is a darker value, I feel like the features can get lost if you don't have good contrasting colors in there. Yeah, so that's just something that I noticed from painting a lot of different color skins. Other than that, everything is all around the same for all skin colors. And yeah, I think what really does help to learn to actually render skin better is by rendering from reference. So a lot of these ones that I rendered here are from references, and it did help me, you know. Well, obviously I've done it in the past, so I know what I'm doing, but it does help you like decipher where the curves will be and where the lighter and darker colors will go, and yeah, it's really cool. This video was a bit easier to do, so I do hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comments below. I'll try and get back to you. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!